I'm a nurse. I have held dying people in my arms for years. But I never knew death itself was waiting to teach me a lesson. When I died, Jesus showed me something about semen retention that broke me. Something I had never heard in church. Something I wish every man knew before it is too late. What Jesus revealed to me will shake you. My name is Daniel Muthoni, from Kenya. Before that night, before the moment my heart stopped, I lived what many would call an ordinary life. I was a night shift nurse at a regional hospital in Nairobi. Anyone who has worked in healthcare knows the weight that comes with the night shift. Endless emergencies, sudden complications, and the constant pressure of making the right decision when a single mistake can cost a life. I was known for being calm under pressure. Patients trusted me. Families prayed for me. Doctors relied on me. But what no one knew was that my spiritual life was quietly collapsing. My day began with a prayer. My night ended with exhaustion. And somewhere in between, my purity battle was destroying me silently. I never told anyone about it, but I struggled with lust. Not openly. Not in a way people could see. It was private, personal, hidden behind smiles and my hospital uniform. To the world, I was strong. But in the secret places, I was weak. Whenever stress overwhelmed me or loneliness crept in, lust became a quiet escape, one I always regretted afterward. Each time I promised myself, this is the last time. Yet somehow, the last time always returned. I knew what Scripture said. I knew my body was a temple, but I treated my weakness as just something every man goes through. I never thought semen meant anything beyond biology. I never imagined it carried a spiritual weight. To me, it was simply part of being human, a natural release, nothing more. Then work became heavier. Our hospital got hit with a wave of critical cases, accidents, strokes, sudden deaths. I was working double shifts, barely sleeping 3 hours a day. The pressure drained my strength. And when a man is tired, truly tired, temptation feels stronger. During those weeks, my spiritual fire dimmed. My prayers became whispers. My Bible gathered dust. I only went to church physically, but not with my heart. And in that spiritual weakness, the enemy took advantage. Lust became a doorway I kept open, thinking no one would ever know. But every time I gave in, I felt a strange emptiness afterward, like something was being taken from me, something deeper than self-control. I didn't understand it then, but now I know. I was losing spiritual strength drop by drop. Still, life went on. I attended patients, comforted families, changed dressings, monitored vitals, and kept smiling like everything was okay. No one knew the battle I fought behind the curtain of my soul. Then came the night that changed everything. A night that began normally, routine checks, emergencies, the usual pressure, but ended with me on the floor, my heart failing, my breath leaving my body, and my soul being pulled out of this world. Looking back, I didn't die because of weakness in my body. I died because heaven had a message for me. A message for every man. What I saw after that moment, no medical training could prepare me for. That night began like every other night shift. The corridors smelled of disinfectant, cold air hummed through the vents, and the silence was constantly broken by stretchers being rushed in. Emergencies came in waves, but we were used to it. We had to be. It was around 2:17 a.m. when the unusual heaviness started in my chest, sharp, deep, and radiating toward my back. At first I brushed it off as fatigue. Nurses do that a lot. We ignore our own bodies because we are busy fighting for others. A few minutes later, dizziness washed over me. I grabbed the edge of the nursing station, trying to steady myself. My colleague, Mercy, noticed the sweat running down my face. "Daniel, are you okay?" she asked. "I'm fine. Just tired," I managed to whisper. But I wasn't fine. Something in me was slipping. Quietly, quickly. As I walked toward the emergency ward to check a patient's vitals, the room suddenly spun. The walls stretched, the lights blurred, and a loud ringing filled my ears. The blood pressure machine slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor. I took one more breath. Then everything inside me shut down. My legs gave way beneath me. My vision dissolved into darkness. I collapsed face first onto the cold hospital floor. I heard distant voices, muffled, panicked, fading in and out like echoes underwater. "Get the crash cart! He's not breathing. Check his pulse. Daniel, stay with us." I felt hands lifting me, needles piercing my skin, the sting of defibrillator pads being placed on my chest. But it was as though I was lying under a thick layer of glass, hearing but unable to respond. "Charge to 200! Clear!" My body jerked violently. Nothing. Another shock. Nothing. Then, everything went silent. The voices stopped. The machine stopped. Time stopped. I felt myself sinking, slowly, steadily, like falling through an endless ocean. There was no pain, no fear, only a strange stillness. Suddenly, I found myself standing beside my own body. I watched the doctors trying to revive me. Their movements were frantic, desperate. Mercy was crying. Someone shouted, "We're losing him!" Yet I felt no attachment to the body on the bed. It looked like an empty shell, something I had used, but was no longer part of me. Then a soft, pulling force wrapped around me, almost like gravity but alive. The hospital faded, dissolving like smoke. Darkness surrounded me, but it wasn't ordinary darkness. It was thick, almost physical. A narrow opening appeared above me, a tunnel of pale, silver light. Before I could move, a hand, bright, warm, and radiant, reached down toward me. It didn't touch my body. It touched my being. With one gentle pull, it lifted me into the light. The moment that radiant hand touched me, every earthly worry disappeared. I was no longer Daniel the nurse. I was a soul being drawn into a realm beyond human understanding, and I knew I was no longer alive. As the radiant hand lifted me upward, the darkness melted away, and I found myself standing in a place I cannot fully describe. It was neither heaven nor hell, more like a border realm, a place of revelation before judgment. The ground beneath my feet looked like polished glass, but it wasn't solid. It felt alive, almost breathing. The air was warm, but not natural warmth, more like the presence of something holy and ancient. Ahead of me stretched a long, glowing corridor. The walls were made of light, yet within the light, images and writings moved like living memories. I took one step, and the corridor responded, pulsing gently beneath me, as though acknowledging my presence. Then the first image appeared. It was me. Not my face, my soul. I watched a scene from years ago, a moment of secret sin I thought no one had ever seen. My heart tightened. I wanted to look away, but I could not. The memory hung in the air like living truth, unchangeable and undeniable. As I walked forward, more memories appeared. Times I prayed with sincerity. Times I served patients with compassion. Times I forgave people quietly. Times I held deep bitterness inside. Times I was tempted and fell. Times I resisted temptation and overcame. Every victory glowed with warm light. Every sin became a dark stain on the wall. Nothing was hidden. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, to explain, to say, "Lord, I was weak. I was tired. I didn't mean to." But no sound came out. In that realm, excuses had no voice. Suddenly, a soft but overwhelming presence filled the corridor. The very air bowed. I didn't need to be told. It was Jesus. His presence didn't feel like a man walking toward me. It felt like light filling every atom of the atmosphere. When he spoke, his voice didn't come from a mouth. It came from everywhere at once. "Daniel." Just hearing my name broke me. Every wall I had built around my heart shattered. He continued, "You cared for many bodies, but you did not guard your own soul." As he spoke, the light on the walls intensified, revealing deeper layers of truth. Things I didn't even know affected me. I saw scenes where my struggles with lust weakened my spirit days later. I saw how each private sin opened small cracks in my spiritual armor. I saw how those cracks drained my authority, my joy, my fire in prayer. Then Jesus said, "Your body does not hide anything from me." Those words pierced me. Every hidden thought, every secret moment, every inward weakness, he had seen all of it. He lifted his hand, and the corridor shifted. The walls faded. The light dimmed. The entire realm changed, turning darker, heavier. A deep, mournful wind swept through. Jesus spoke again, his tone serious. "There is something you must see, something every man must understand." And before I could respond, the ground opened beneath my feet. I was pulled downward, not falling, but being taken. What awaited me below was not a dream. It was not imagination. It was a realm of eternal consequence, a realm where truth had no mercy. I was pulled downward with terrifying speed, yet I felt completely conscious. The air grew heavier, thicker, like a world where even the atmosphere carried sorrow. Then suddenly, everything stopped. I found myself standing in a vast, cavernous pit. The ground was cracked like volcanic rock, glowing with red veins that pulsed faintly under my feet. The heat wasn't like earthly fire. It was a heavy spiritual heat that pressed against the soul, not the skin. The silence was broken by distant screams, deep, painful, echoing cries that rose and fell like waves in a nightmare. The sound didn't come from one place. It came from everywhere. Jesus stood beside me, his presence the only thing keeping me from collapsing under fear. His face carried no anger, only a deep grief. He lifted his hand, and my eyes were opened wider. That was when I saw them. Men. Hundreds, no, thousands of them, trapped in different pits and chambers. Some were bound with chains made of shadows. Others were held down by creatures that looked like twisted skeletal beasts with hollow burning eyes. A pit to my left glowed with a dark, pulsating light. Above it was a name. The Pit of Wasted Seed. My heart froze. Jesus allowed me to hear the torment within that pit. The cries were deeper than physical pain. They were screams of regret, of men who realized the spiritual consequences of the things they did in secret. I asked, trembling, "Lord, who are these?" His answer pierced me. "These are men who treated their purity as nothing, who believed their seed carried no spiritual meaning. They wasted what I gave them, and strengthened the kingdom of darkness." I looked again, and what I saw broke me. Demons crowded around the pit like starving animals. Each time a man inside remembered a moment of secret sin, a dark vapor rose from his body. The demons inhaled it greedily, laughing with hideous joy. Jesus said, "Every drop lost to lust gave these spirits access to their lives, to their minds, their marriages, their destinies." I saw men who, in life, had been strong, respected, gifted, but here they looked small, empty, drained. Everything they could have become was displayed above their heads like broken visions. Ministries they never fulfilled, marriages, they damaged destinies, they abandoned spiritual authority, they lost. Then Jesus pointed to another group in the same pit. These ones were surrounded by chains made of words, words they had spoken to themselves. "It doesn't matter. It's natural. No one will know. I'll stop later. This is normal for men." Jesus said, "They believed the lies of the enemy more than my word. They forgot that purity is a battle of destiny, not biology." As he spoke, the pit grew darker, the screams louder. I felt my soul trembling, not from fear of hell, but from the realization that my own hidden battles were not small. Then Jesus turned to me, and his eyes, filled with sorrow, met mine. "Daniel, your life was slipping toward this place, not because you were evil, but because you were blind." At that moment, I collapsed to my knees, sobbing. I understood. I finally understood. But the revelation was not over. Jesus extended his hand again. "Come. There is something deeper you must see." And in an instant we were transported to a new realm, still dark, but different from the pit, a place where the spiritual meaning of a man's seed was about to be revealed. Jesus led me to a quieter, dimly glowing chamber beyond the pit. Unlike the chaotic screams of hell, this place was solemn and still, yet heavy with truth. The floor seemed alive beneath my feet, pulsing gently, as if the space itself was waiting for a revelation. He stopped and lifted his hand. In it was a cup, not an ordinary cup, but one that glowed with a golden, radiant light. I could feel warmth radiating from it, not like the sun, but like something eternal and living. Jesus placed the cup before me. I leaned closer, curious. Inside was a golden liquid that shimmered with light. Pure, powerful, sacred. He spoke, his voice calm but piercing. Daniel, this is the seed I placed in every man. Every drop carries life, destiny, and spiritual authority. It is not simply biology. It is my design for creation, discipline, and covenant with the soul. As he spoke, the cup overflowed, and each drop transformed into a faint flame. I watched as the flames fell into the empty spaces around me, illuminating areas that had been dark and shadowed. Each flame represented a gift: clarity, discipline, spiritual power, prayer strength, protection, and authority. Then he showed me what happens when it is wasted. Every time a man releases this seed into lust, pornography, or selfish indulgence, the power I designed is stolen. It does not return. It is lost. And every loss gives the enemy a foothold in the soul. I saw men in my vision, ordinary men I had known, some even respected in their communities. Every time they gave in to temptation, dark vapors rose from them, feeding unseen forces, while light drained from their spirits. Their authority weakened. Their prayers became heavy and sluggish, their destinies blurred. The reality struck me with overwhelming force. Semen retention is not simply a self-help practice or a strange fad. It is a spiritual battle. Every act of control strengthens the soul. Every act of indulgence weakens it. Jesus lifted his hand again, and the golden cup poured over my own being. I felt the light enter me, filling spaces I didn't know were empty. Strength flowed into my heart, my mind, my spirit. I could feel clarity and focus returning, a fire awakening that I hadn't felt in years. He looked at me, his eyes grave but filled with compassion. Daniel, a man who cannot control his seed cannot fully control his destiny. Every choice matters. Every act of discipline builds spiritual authority. Purity is not about shame. It is about safeguarding the life I placed within you. Tears streamed down my face as I realized how many times I had wasted my own seed, thinking it harmless, thinking it private, thinking it meaningless. The realization burned through me like fire. I understood that my struggles had been more than just personal weaknesses. They had been spiritual battles that affected every part of my life and future. Then he said something that shook me to my core. Semen retention is not about avoiding pleasure. It is about protecting your soul, your destiny, and the authority I placed within you. Every man must fight this battle, or risk losing what I have entrusted to him. The golden light of the cup pulsed again, and I knew I was seeing a truth that could not be ignored. I fell to my knees, sobbing, overwhelmed by the weight of what I had learned. I understood that my life would never be the same, and neither would the lives of every man who ignored this warning. After the revelation of the golden seed, Jesus led me further into the chamber. The darkness around us seemed to fade, replaced by a faint, radiant light that carried both warmth and authority. My heart was still heavy from the sights of the pit, but now I sensed a new purpose, an understanding of what it meant to fight and overcome temptation. He stopped before a new vision. It was unlike the pit I had just witnessed. Here were men who had walked the path of discipline. Each of them stood tall, unbroken, and glowing faintly with a soft, golden aura. They were ordinary men in appearance, yet the power emanating from them was undeniable. Jesus spoke gently. See, Daniel, these men faced the same battles as you, yet they chose differently. Every temptation resisted became a crown upon their spirit. Every act of discipline forged light in their soul. I watched as each crown formed above their heads, small at first, almost imperceptible, but with every victory, it grew. Some crowns were simple, others intricate, but each one carried the weight of a life fought in righteousness. The more they resisted, the brighter the flame of the crown became, illuminating not only themselves, but also the path around them. Jesus continued. Semen retention is not simply avoiding sin. It is a weapon, a shield, and a key. Every drop guarded strengthens the man to walk with authority, to pray with power, and to fulfill the destiny I placed in his heart. Every victory is stored as light, a crown of eternal value. I saw their struggles, their quiet moments of prayer before sleep, their fasts, their self-control. And with each act of resistance, light flowed from them into the world. Their victories were not just personal, they rippled outward, affecting families, ministries, and communities. Then Jesus turned to me. His eyes, deep with both mercy and seriousness, met mine. Daniel, understand this. Your purity is never private. It is connected to the spiritual assignments I have placed in your life. A man who cannot master himself cannot fully lead, protect, or prosper in the calling I have given him. I felt the truth settle into my bones. I thought about my secret sins, the temptations I had ignored, and the drain they caused. And then I saw a contrast, how light could have filled those moments instead of darkness. Every wasted opportunity for discipline became a shadow. Every resisted temptation became a crown. The battle is not about shame or punishment, Jesus explained. It is about stewardship. Every man is a steward of his body, his seed, his soul. Those who guard it well will shine. Those who neglect it will be broken. I sank to my knees, overwhelmed. The crowns of the disciplined men shone like beacons, revealing not only the reward, but also the gravity of the choice before every man. I realized the pit I had seen earlier was avoidable. Every act of lust could have been met with resistance, and every time, light would have grown instead of darkness. Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder and whispered, "Go back, Daniel. Tell my sons and my daughters what I have shown you. Teach them that discipline, purity, and self-control are not burdens, they are life. Every man who guards his seed guards his destiny." Tears streamed down my face as I understood the weight of responsibility now resting on me. I had seen the destruction of neglect and the glory of victory, and I knew I could never return to life unchanged. After witnessing the crowns of purity, Jesus guided me to a place that seemed to stretch infinitely, a realm that was calm yet full of weight, a place of final reflection before returning to my body. The light here was soft but piercing, illuminating everything without exposing pain or fear. I felt as if every hidden corner of my heart was being examined, yet I was met with mercy. Jesus looked at me, his gaze steady, profound, and full of love. I wanted to fall to my knees again, but his presence made me feel both humbled and strengthened. Then he spoke, the words I will never forget. "Daniel, you have seen both sides, the pit of wasted seed and the crowns of the disciplined. What you have witnessed is the choice of every man. The battle is not between men and men. It is between the soul and the enemy who seeks to devour destiny." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink deep. I felt a heaviness I had never known, an urgency, a warning that could not be ignored. "You have been shown mercy because your life still has purpose. But understand this. A man who treats his body as a vessel for lust alone is slowly surrendering what I have entrusted to him. Every drop of seed wasted, every act of indulgence, every temptation embraced carelessly steals from his prayer power, his spiritual authority, and his destiny." I bowed my head, tears streaming. I thought of my life, the moments I had been careless, the nights of secret sin, the times I had justified indulgence. I felt naked before him, exposed not to shame, but to truth. Jesus continued, "Do not think this is punishment. This is the law of creation. Every man carries a seed of life, authority, and destiny. Guard it, protect it, treat it as sacred. For what you allow in secret shapes not only your spirit, but the generations that follow." Then he leaned closer, and his voice grew soft but piercing, like a whisper that reverberated in the deepest part of my soul. "Daniel, when you return to your body, speak this truth. Warn my sons, warn my daughters. The battle is real, and the enemy is patient. Every secret indulgence may seem harmless, but it steals power. It steals light. It steals destiny. Guard yourselves." I wanted to argue, to ask for clarification, to plead for more time. But I understood. The revelation had been complete. The images of the pit, the crowns, the golden cup, they would never leave me. And the urgency of the warning burned in my soul. Jesus reached out and placed his hand on my heart. The light surged, filling every weakness I had carried. I felt clarity, strength, and understanding flood through me. And then, without a word, he released me. A wind, a force not of this world, pushed me backward, and I felt my soul being drawn back into the realm of the living. The tunnel of light appeared once more, and I began to descend toward my body. Even as I fell, I could hear his voice echoing behind me. Go, Daniel. Speak, warn, teach. Every man must fight this battle. Guard his seed, guard his soul, guard his destiny. And with that, I felt my body once more, the cold floor beneath me, the frantic voices, the beeping monitors, the world of the living. But I was not the same man who had collapsed just moments before. I was changed. I had seen what few ever see. I had been entrusted with a warning I could never ignore. Suddenly, my awareness snapped back to my earthly body. I felt the cold, hard floor of the hospital beneath me, my uniform damp with sweat, the beeping of monitors sharp in my ears. Nurses and doctors were leaning over me, shouting instructions I barely understood. Mercy's voice pierced the fog. Daniel, stay with us! Don't leave us! I opened my eyes, and the bright fluorescent lights of the ward stabbed my vision. I was gasping, trembling, overwhelmed by a surge of emotions I could not name. Relief, fear, awe, guilt, and above all, an intense understanding of what had just happened. I looked at my hands, still human, still fragile, still warm, but I knew they had been instruments in a spiritual battle I had never fully grasped. My body was alive, yes, but my soul had walked through realms that changed me forever. The doctors continued their frantic efforts, finally stabilizing me. I could hear murmurs. He's coming back. He's stable. Thank God. But I barely noticed. My mind was replaying every image I had seen. The pit of wasted seed, the crowns of discipline, the golden cup, the light that Jesus poured into my spirit. The weight of it all was almost too much to bear. I finally sat up, tears streaming down my face. I didn't care who saw. No one would understand what I had witnessed, not fully. But I knew one thing. I had been given a message I could not ignore. I whispered to myself, the enemy steals through what is hidden, through what is ignored, through what is treated as insignificant. Every act of lust, every moment of indulgence, every secret compromise takes something from my destiny. Mercy looked at me with wide eyes, confused. But I only shook my head. I could not explain this in human words, not yet. My spirit had seen realities that could not be contained by logic or science. Over the following days, the memory of what Jesus had shown me remained vivid. Every temptation, every private indulgence, every moment I had treated my body carelessly, these things played out in my mind with the clarity of vision I had been given in that realm. And every time, the warning burned deeper into my heart. Guard your seed, guard your soul, guard your destiny. I began to speak, cautiously at first, to fellow men, colleagues, and later, friends and family. The words flowed with authority I had never felt before. I spoke about discipline, self-control, purity, not as shame, not as guilt, but as the key to spiritual strength, prayer power, and destiny. And even though some laughed, some ignored me, and some misunderstood, I knew the truth. I had seen the pit. I had seen the light. I had seen the consequences of negligence and the rewards of obedience. Every man must understand. Secrecy does not hide sin from God. Every act of indulgence has spiritual consequences, and every act of discipline builds power, authority, and destiny. I live today not just as Daniel Muthoni, the nurse. I live as a man entrusted with a warning from heaven, a warning every man should hear. Guard your purity, guard your seed, guard your soul, guard your destiny. The battle is real and it begins within.